Hey there, welcome back to Beyond the Boxes, episode 2. Today we're going to be looking at the notes of the D string. So if you didn't catch the last one, I was just going over the notes of the G string and the B string. A simple rule that you can follow to work out all the notes. And we're just going to apply that to the D string. The reason I didn't talk about the two E's of the A is because most of us know that without, whether you know it or not, you've probably started to learn those notes because most of us learn the notes on the Louis and the A in order to play our bar chords. And then, of course, whatever you learn on the Louis, you get that high E for free. So really the problem most guitar players have is these middle strings. So the D, the G, and the B. And we're just going to finish off the middle strings by talking about the D string. So start with open D. Easy enough. So the rule is there's 2 frets between each of the letters, except for between E and F and B and C. So if I'm assuming that the open string can be like number 0, D to E, that's just going to be a regular move. So E is going to be on the 2nd fret. You can always check this with the Louis. So there's our E. Then we're looking for F, and that's one of the exceptions. So F's right here. That's also why you've probably noticed that the F, when you're playing it on the E string, that the E's on the, when the F is on the 1st fret, that's again because of that exception, right? Okay, so we've found F. Now we're looking for G. That's regular, so that's up 2 frets. G looking for A, that's up 2 frets. A looking for B, also 2 frets. And then between B and C, here's the other exception. So now we're on C on the 10th fret, looking for D. And once you reach D at the 12th fret, you've done the whole thing. Because that's the octave from the open D. So actually the guitar is really not as long as you might think looking at it. If you can learn your notes from the open string to the 12th fret, you're laughing because from the 12th onwards is simply a repetition of what you've already learned down there. So just one more time. So D, E, F 1 fret away, G's normal 2, G to A normal, A to B normal, B to C, that's the other exception, C to D normal. Once you've got a pretty good handle on the notes you want to play, then you want to start using devices to help you play in a more linear fashion up the neck. So I'm going to use the key of A minor as a demonstration, mostly because then I can use the open A string, but also because this key doesn't have any sharps or flats, so you can totally focus on the notes you've just spent time figuring out where they are. Or you can play it open. So we've got 4 notes in this chord, A, C, E, G, and I kind of see them as kind of like the 4 basses you'd have like in baseball or rounders. If the band is playing an A minor 7, playing on any of these 4 notes is going to be a place where you can settle, you can edge your phrases. It's not going to create much tension. So for example, if I play an A note on the G string, but the safest note you can play, sounds alright. There's nothing wildly exciting about it either, but whatever. Alright, the next note in the chord is C, so which is going to be on the 5th fret, and we know that now because we've worked out previously on the G string. So A is there, therefore A to B is 2 away, and then B and C, just like we did on the D string, that's 1 fret. So A to C is then A's on the 2nd fret, C's on the 5th. Okay, the next sort of safe note is E. So A, C, E. So we're on C. Go up 2, there's D. I'm going to skip over that. D, E. So there's the next sort of safe note on the 9th fret. So. These are the kind of notes you could finish your phrases on, and it could sound almost like, you know, the finale of something, or it could be the end of whatever you want to do. So, for example, right? Or if I ended on the C, and then finally if you ended on the A, okay, one more to go. A, C, E, and G would be the last one. So we've worked out where E is. We're trying to find G, so E to F, that's going to be one of those exceptions. So E's on the 9th fret, F's on the 10th. And then once we're on F, we're looking for G, and that's regular, so it's up 2. Probably the least safe of the safe notes, you know. Doesn't feel as stable as the root note or the 5th. There's a sense that you might want it to go somewhere else. Like the octave. Or maybe your ear hears it going down, so. So obviously the notes of the triad, just the 1, 3, 5, are going to sound even more stable than the 7. Once you have those mapped out, then we're talking about the notes that we've skipped over on the way to finding those 4 safe points. So the other notes that we've jumped over, they're the ones in the scale. So they're in the key, but they're not in the chord that the band is playing. And so they're going to rub a little bit more, create a little bit more drama, more likely to need resolution, unless you just want to play them because you want that tension. So it depends what you're looking for, but let's just assume you're trying to resolve to a more familiar note. So we've got 3 of them. We've got A and we've got C, the root note and the 3rd. So the first note of the scale and the 3rd note of the scale. Right, so they're both safe. The letter that we skipped over was the B, which was the 2nd letter of the scale. And if I just sit on it for a second. Most people hear that go somewhere. So either or maybe it resolves upwards. So the first device that people use to kind of incorporate these other notes is called passing notes. So you just play them in passing, as the name suggests, right? So I'm not going to linger on it. I'm not going to go. Obviously, anything you do would have, or most things have a name, because people have done a lot already in the past. So there's not much that hasn't been done, and therefore, you know, categorized with some sort of name. But with passing notes, the goal is to start and end on one of these safer notes, and you kind of just sneak in one of the other ones. So instead of doing that, I'm going to start on the A and then play my B note on the way to C. I know that sounds like nothing. It's like, well, that's just the start of playing a scale. But you're trying to rethink how you think about scales. It's not, you know, a collection of notes that you're just running up and down. You're taking each of the notes in the scales and creating a hierarchy of like drama. So these notes are the safest and most dull, and then you have the notes that are so on the bottom, the notes that are in the key are the most safe. Then you have the ones above that are in the key but still have a bit of edge to them, and then the ones that are outside the key, which have the most drama and the most tension, and the ones you have to be most careful about in the way in which you resolve those ones. Even though it just sounds like you're playing the start of the scale, it's reframing it. It's like you've played that a million times probably, but just seeing it as, okay, the first note is one of those safe ones, the third note's one of those safe ones, and that one in between, I now hear that as something that's adding a bit more tension, and I'm actively choosing to go like play through it in order to reach the next safe note. Because if I stopped halfway, you know, that sounds incomplete in a way that the other one doesn't. And of course we can go backwards. Again, if I stopped halfway there, you know, purposefully, you know, creating more drama. Let's say I just want to go home. Next one's going to be between C, which is the third note, and E, which is the fifth note. Okay, so if we're just playing the safe notes, but if I play, again, it feels a little bit up in the air. Incidentally, when you're playing an A minor pentatonic, that D note is the one note that's not in this chord. So people do this instinctually. Like you don't need to know it's the fourth. You don't need to know that it's a D note. But you know when people are going, they can hear that it's not done yet, and then people always go, ah, there we go. Why does that sound like it's done? Well, you either know or you don't, but like you intuitively can sense that's the end. But then if you look at why, it's because you've ended on an A note, which is the same as that A note, which is the safest note you can play. You know, that leaves us up in the air. So again, we're just going to practice some like playing that D as a passing note, starting on the C, the third, playing the D, hearing the little bit of drama it creates, and then continuing onwards to the E, the fifth. Then we go the other way. Start on the fifth. Gonna head down towards the third. Okay, one more. So we're going to start on the fifth and try to travel to the seven. And the note in between is the sixth note of the scale, which has the most bite to it. So it's the equivalent of going. It has kind of the most tragic sound. It's when people are playing in a minor key and they really want to tug on people's heartstrings. It's that sixth that's got the most kind of somber tone to it. Okay, if I just play the six by itself. Right, a lot of tension. Okay, so let's play it in passing. So starting on the fifth, using the six, but on its way to the seven. Okay, so there's an example of playing passing notes in the key of A minor on the G string. The episodes after this, I'll take the same approach and we'll just do different strings. Always thinking about passing, using these notes, same notes, different strings, and just getting used to the idea of playing these notes in passing in between these safer chord tones. And then once we're done with the quite a basic device of passing notes, we can use several more devices in increasing complexity to get from one chord tone, one of these safe notes, different ways to get from one safe note to the other. Alright, that's us. We'll leave it there. Hope that helps. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.